Well, I like them all to some extent. Dude Love is obviously the weakest of the three, as that one is more of a comedy character, although it was funny. Cactus Jack was great for being the violent monster, but I think my favorite was Mankind, especially early on when it was a very psychological and weird, twisted sort of character that's... I've seen other people try to emulate or recreate that character, and it's never really worked. So I really liked a lot of the interviews, especially I think Foley's best promos came out of being Mankind. Just very psychological, very cerebral, and kind of creepy in a lot of them. And then later on, as the character developed, it became more Mick Foley's natural personality, which brought in a lot of comedy, a lot of emotions, and a lot of other great stuff that make Mick Foley such a great performer. So I felt like Mankind was the best showcase of Foley's abilities as a character. Not counting some indie matches that I've seen between guys that are very unpolished and have almost no experience, the worst match I've ever seen on a mainstream level would have to be Trish Stratus and Bradshaw versus Chris Nowinski and Jackie Gata on an episode of Monday Night Raw in 2002. Yikes. Without a doubt, my favorite wrestling faction has to be the NWO. Early days of the NWO, when it was Hogan, Hall, and Nash, and a few other guys tagged on. 96, 97, the NWO revolutionized wrestling. It was one of the greatest ideas that had ever been come up with. Yeah, they ripped off a stable in Japan, but they took a great idea, brought it to the States, and it changed everything. It changed the way that wrestling television was presented for both companies, WWF and WCW. The merchandise was fantastic, and nothing had ever been done like that before. The Hogan heel turn gave it a lot of spark and energy, and the Outsiders, they came in and made it cool. The NWO early stages was without a doubt the greatest wrestling faction of all time. Oh my god, there's so many tag teams to name that I really liked. The Rockers, the Hart Foundation, the Road Warriors. They were like a tag team version of Goldberg in their prime. I was a huge fan of Demolition. I always disagreed with them being considered Road Warrior ripoffs. British Bulldogs, big fan of them. The Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, they were also the Brainbusters in the WWF. Really liked that team. The Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Freebirds, good lord, yeah, there were just so many. And then you had the tag team renaissance in the early 2000s where you had the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys. My favorite of that bunch, though, Edge and Christian, definitely. I thought Edge and Christian was the best team out of that. I thought they were very entertaining, in addition to just having great matches. They were fantastic. And TNA's had a lot of teams that I really like, too. The two that really stand out to me from TNA were America's Most Wanted and, obviously, Beer Money. Great old-school style tag teams that just worked. So, obviously, I'm a huge tag team mark. And, yeah, there have been so many great tag teams. To name just one would be very, very hard to do. I tend to lean towards the Hart Foundation because I was a big fan of Brett, and I liked the idea of having two guys that are completely different styles meshed together in the ring. And I just always liked that style for a tag team. And so the Hart Foundation always appealed to me. But Edge and Christian's really high up there, too. So we'll say one of those two for sure. Yes, and the sooner the better. Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, here's a guy that can cut some of the best promos in the business, and it always felt like whenever he was there, the WWE had nothing for him to do. Not even talk. I mean, even if you don't want to use him as a wrestler, it's like you could at least use him as a manager, as a mouthpiece for somebody, which they did do early on when he was Johnny Polo. But it was just bizarre that they never had anything for Raven to do, and I always thought that was weird, especially in like the early 2000s when he was still good in the ring. But oh well. In my mind, John Morrison. Here's a guy that looks like a rock star. is one of the best athletes you could possibly hope for. I mean, that guy is better now than Shawn Michaels was in his prime, at least athletically. And if I've seen the guy in interviews, I've seen him doing the dirt sheet with The Miz. The dude has a personality. Unfortunately, I felt like he was kind of a victim of the bad writing that sometimes pollutes the WWE. Having him go out there and smile like all the other baby faces do, and call somebody Mr. Ziggles is not a good way to present somebody that looks like that, and somebody that I felt could have had more of a cool personality. Again, he looks like a rock star, and they never took advantage of that with him. He was just another smiling doofus babyface, despite the way he looked and the way he wrestled. But again, it's just one of those things, I guess. No more than 4 or 5, and even those cases should be rare. While the red and yellow Hulkamania Hulk Hogan was a big part of my childhood and was a big part of reshaping wrestling through the 1980s, I felt like the Hollywood Hulk Hogan incarnation was a more compelling character, a very interesting and very hateable villain, and was the result of one of, if not the greatest heel turn of all time. And because it created the NWO, which was like one of the hottest things ever, I tend to look back more favorably on Hollywood Hogan as being one of the best periods of Hulk Hogan's career. Again, the NWO got overexposed after a while, and but so did Hulkamania, so they both fall into that category. But overall, I did prefer the Hollywood Hulk Hogan character, I think. I am not even going to bother counting a lot of female performers in this, because if I got into some of the worst female performers in wrestling history, I would be here all day. But 5 worst wrestlers I've ever seen: Dennis Knight, Dino Bravo, that Triton dude from TNA, who I have no idea who he was, Great Khali, and Giant Gonzalez, El Gigante, or the Yeti, whichever name you want to use. I'm not sure what I would do specifically. I'm no major creative, artistic genius by any stretch of the imagination, but if I had any input, I would strive for a look that's classical and timeless, and something that looks like an actual professional sports championship. Something like the old Eagle belt that Hulk Hogan used to have. Something like the big gold belt that Flair used to carry. Something like the old NWA title with the little silver planet Earth embedded in the middle of it. Something that just screams classical and timeless. And I wouldn't go for something like we have now with the spinner belt, which seems like an attempt to look hip and cool, but failing miserably because the belt looks awful. So I would definitely steer clear of something like that. And again, I'd go for that more classical look that I prefer. For me, it was the 1980s, because that was the era where the WWF broke a lot of new ground and really elevated professional wrestling and evolved it into something that was much grander, and also featured just a slew of great, over-the-top, flashy characters, in addition to some great wrestling. PG era of today, not so much. Not really doing that, no. I say go the Hollywood Hulk Hogan route. Just make him a very angry, bitter, frustrated egomaniac that doesn't go away, and just play off the fact that there have been large portions of fans that have hated his guts since 2005 when he first won the damn belt. And he really would be one of the easiest heel turns to execute of all time if they did it right. But yeah, I would go more that route. Just use the Hollywood Hogan thing as a reference point, and then use Cena's own history as a way to kind of give it its own identity. Some of the finishers that I really didn't like were some of the striking-based ones, hand-based striking. Moves like the Heart Punch, which Stan Stasiak used back in the day, and a few others utilized as well. Moves like Umaga Samoan Spike, and obviously Santino's Cobra, which is nothing short of ridiculous, and I'm pretty sure wouldn't hurt a child. But I'm not a fan of those type of moves because the striking in wrestling is always going to look fake to some degree, unless the guy is shooting, in which case something is seriously wrong. But yeah, a lot of those moves never really did it for me for that reason. They just never looked that good. Another one that I felt never looked that good, and it's one of the reasons I listed Dino Bravo as one of my least favorite wrestlers a couple questions ago. His finisher, the sidewalks, he used a sidewalk slam as a finisher. They called it a side suplex, even though it wasn't a suplex. Other guys did it, made it look better. They never used it as a finisher. He did, and when he would hit it, it would make almost no sound, no impact, no nothing, yet he used to beat people with it. I just never got it, never understood. That was one as a kid that I was just like, what the hell? That one sucks. Other finishers that lack credibility are the ones that people kick out of a lot. I never believe that Kurt Angle's going to beat anybody with the angle slam because he never does beat anybody with it. Chris Jericho, the Lion Salt, never wins with that move. And because of that, I never believe he's going to win when he hits it. So if they want to give moves more credibility, they'll actually have the guys win with them once in a while. The Cobra actually has more credibility than the Angle Slam and the Lion Salt because Santino actually wins matches with it. Go figure. For some reason, Edge never really had that great of a finisher. I remember early on he was using the downward spiral, which is another really bad one. Where it looks like the dude's giving a rock bottom to himself. Was never a fan of that. But they also gave him a spear, and that's the one he's most known for. And I don't think he's really built for it. You think of the spear, you think of guys like Goldberg or Rhino. When Rhino would hit the gore, it would look like he was just sawing a guy in half. But Edge just wasn't built well enough for the spear to really make it look like something that I believed was a deadly finisher. The second I read that question, there were two things that popped into my mind. Two matches that really, really stick out to me as being overlooked or underrated. From SummerSlam 1990, that would be Demolition versus the Hart Foundation in a tag team title match, 2 out of 3 falls. I think it's one of the best tag matches I've ever seen. Love that match to death. Doesn't always come up in the discussion of the great SummerSlam matches. Another one that I really liked was Ted DiBiase versus Virgil for the $1 Million Championship at SummerSlam 1991. Of great drama. Roddy Piper on commentary was brilliant. Ted DiBiase, this was one of the best performances of his entire career because he basically had to carry the whole thing because, he's working with Virgil. The feud was fantastic. The drama was great. The crowd ate it up. I think it's a great match and a great moment and a great payoff to a great storyline. Doesn't always come up in discussion, though. So when I think of overlooked SummerSlam matches, those are the two that definitely come to mind. Oh, there are a lot. There are definitely a lot of matches that I felt were overrated. One that really comes to mind for me, though, and I didn't think it was a bad match, but it often gets the praise of being one of the greatest matches of all time, and I never thought that. And it's actually from one of my favorite WrestleManias, Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar at Mania 19. Good match, solid enough main event. I didn't think it was anything that special, though. It was just an ordinary kind of technical wrestling match. I didn't think it was one of the greatest matches of all time. It wasn't even the best match on that WrestleMania. I think Michaels and Jericho blew it out of the water. I think Hogan and McMahon blew it out of the water. Austin and Rock blew it out of the water. And I thought it was about on par with Triple H and Booker T. It was a good match, not a fantastic one, in my opinion. And I don't think a match where the ending was horribly botched with Lesnar, fucking up on the shooting star press. I don't think a match where the ending is horribly, horribly, horribly botched and poor Kurt had to basically pull an ending out of his ass. I don't think that should be praised as one of the greatest matches of all time. Just my opinion. To be the guy in the program that ends The Undertaker's career, that's a pretty big role to give to somebody, and I don't know who you give that to. I guess of the current crop of guys, it would be CM Punk. But whoever you give it to, it's got to be somebody that you can build a future around for a long time to come, like at least another 8 to 10 years out of. It's not somebody like Triple H, whose best days are behind him, or Brock Lesnar, who's only a sometimes guy, or The Rock, who's the same thing. You want to give something like that to somebody who you can build a huge future around. And right now, I guess the answer would be CM Punk, but you never know what future talents are coming up in the wrestling business in this day and age. So there could be some prodigy out there that we don't even know about yet that could come up and would be a perfect candidate for a huge, huge honor like that. There are a lot of factors that killed tag team wrestling in the WWE to the point that even when they try to introduce a new tag team or two new tag teams and do something with them, nobody really gives a shit because everybody just knows that tag team wrestling doesn't matter. I think one of the main reasons is that just 10 years ago, WWE just adopted this mindset that the only things that matter are the big name stars, the main events, the world titles, and that's it. And that's all that matters. And that's probably why they haven't realized it's stupid to have two world champions, because they, in their mind, that this world heavyweight title is still a main event belt. So it matters to some degree. But they just got this idea that, IC title doesn't matter, US title doesn't matter, and certainly tag teams don't matter. And, and by doing that, they basically destroyed their system for creating new stars. And now it's like they keep trying to create new stars out of thin air, and it's hard to do that, very hard to do that. And I think that's one of the leading factors in destroying tag team wrestling. And now, in the indie scene, it's very hard to find tag team acts out there because most people just want to be singles guys. And, you talk to a lot of wrestlers that are in tag teams, they eventually, they talk about how they have plans of eventually breaking off and going singles. Not a whole lot of wrestlers are willing to dedicate themselves to being in a great tag team and perfecting the craft of tag team wrestling. So that's a major problem as well. But, yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs for tag team wrestling at the moment. Aside from some of the stuff that Kevin Steen is doing, there's not a whole lot to really get excited about over there in Ring of Honor right now. It's pretty much just paint-by-numbers booking right now. It's, nothing spectacularly horrible, but there's nothing that's really catching my attention or really generating any kind of excitement like the Austin Aries title win in TNA did, or like the recent CM Punk heel turn. It's pretty much just by the books, straight up, paint by numbers kind of stuff, which is what Jim Cornette usually does, unfortunately. And there's just not a whole lot of interest right there, right now in Ring of Honor from my end. Also, as I mentioned in a previous video, I had so many problems whenever I would try to stream their pay-per-views that I decided not to order them anymore. And I don't know if that's still a problem or what the deal is with that, but hopefully they've gotten that under control, and maybe I'll come back to it someday. But right now, there's not a whole lot going on that's really got my interest. Basically, I feel the World Heavyweight Championship is a spot that shouldn't even exist. I've said that before. That title needs to be done away with. There's no reason to have two world champions. It makes no sense. It devalues the label of being a world champion. And the whole reason for doing it, the brand extension, is dead now. There is no brand extension. I don't care what anybody says. They've done nothing to really enforce that or keep the rosters separate. So that's a spot that shouldn't even exist, regardless of who's holding that belt. I really don't care about the World Heavyweight title. As for Sheamus, good talent. I like the guy, but he's basically just been reduced to be, he's just another smiling doofus babyface that loves everybody and is just having a good old time and everything, and that's kind of boring. But, yeah, I mean, that's not so much a reflection on him, but... that's what Vince McMahon likes in his baby faces, and that's what he usually goes for. But I don't know why we can't have that Irish badass that he was when he was a heel, why we can't just have that as a face. Basically, not have Sheen wrestle, have him be in the corner of whoever it is that Daniel Bryan is going to be wrestling, which I think they're going to do with Kane. Although Kane wouldn't have been my first option to do that with. That's the route I would take, and then let the interactions on TV on the mic be between DB and Charlie Sheen, and then hope for the media attention that would generate. Absolutely not, and I hate that logic that comes up sometimes where some people will defend something by saying, oh, well, it was supposed to be bad, or it needed to be bad to do this. Actually, that happened earlier this year with the Rock Cena build-up. They did the This Is Your Life bit with John Cena, and the segment was horrible and dragged on forever and was bad, but people defended it saying, well, it needed to be bad to set up The Rock's anger or something like that, whatever it was. I don't believe in using something bad to set up something good. I believe you should use something good to set up something good. When they set up Hogan and Andre, they didn't set it up with a bunch of shit feuds that Hogan was in. Hogan had some of the best feuds of his career before heading into that match. They used the feud with Piper and the feud with Orndorff and the feud with Bundy. All at least good feuds. I really like the Orndorff feud and the Piper feud. And they used those to build up Hogan to set him up for Andre for something much grander. If they wanted to do this route and just have Cena main event every pay-per-view just to fuel Punk's anger, that's fine. That's a good idea. Unfortunately, the only match that was really worth it was the Brock Lesnar match at Extreme Rules. That was a great main event. I praised the hell out of that match. All the other ones, though, like the Johnny Ace match was one of the worst matches I've seen this year. The Big Show match at No Way Out was terrible. Was it really worth having two shitty pay-per-view main events just for the sake of setting up Punk's heel turn? No. It was like, why not have two stellar main events that keep Cena in there, or interesting, write something good for Cena to put him in that spot, and then use that as fuel for Punk's anger, because it's the same idea anyway, but at least we get good stuff along the way. That's the mindset I use. Is like, I don't believe in using shit to set up gold. I believe in using gold to set up gold. I would like all of it to be good leading up to the eventual payoff, but that's just the mindset I have.